Hi, I'm Sean, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about breathing, but not breathing in the traditional sense of inhale, exhale with your breath, but more metaphorically, what we look at when we say breathing that relates a little bit more to mental health. So, when I'm referring to breathing, what I'm talking about is both the inhale and the exhale. You have to inhale in order to exhale, and you have to exhale in order to inhale. So both of those dynamics together make a complete breath. So it takes two parts, both the inhale and the exhale, to bring a complete breath to the lungs. So sometimes in life, what we look at is we think we're breathing, but we're actually only doing one of these two actions. We're either only exhaling or we're only inhaling. And so we can get caught up with thinking that we're taking a complete breath, but we're actually not. So another way to look at this is the typical way that therapists kind of turn and ask you to breathe. There is two tiers to also breathing, right? There's kind of shallow breathing, which kind of sends a message or a signal to the brain to let them know there's an alert, something's going on. We need to kind of use our survival instincts. And then there's a deeper breath, which means all is well and we're calm. So it's an inhale and an exhale. And then if you think about it metaphorically for therapy, there's also that calming breath and also that more wild up breath. So when we're shallow breathing, that's not completely breathing. It's when we completely inhale and get that belly rising and exhale that actually calms our bodies. So very similar in life, and I'll get into it in just a moment. We think that we're taking complete breaths, but we're either only inhaling or only exhaling, or we're taking shallow breaths. So let's get into a little bit more descriptive of what I mean by that. So if we look at breathing as a grounding technique, and again, I'm not talking about redistributing oxygen and blood throughout your body in that deep, deep breathing. What I'm referring to is breathing metaphorically for ourselves. What I mean by that is when we inhale and exhale, we are expanding ourselves. This can also be used as an outlook for our lives. What I mean by that is you are not just one thing. You are a bunch of things in relation to the dynamics of not just the people, but the environment around you. So you have yourself, you have your family, you have your extended family, you have your work coworkers, you have faith, you have nature, you have your community. You have all these different layers to yourself that you have. So sometimes when we see self and family, we're not completely breathing. We're actually just shallow breathing. And if you just have self and family, nothing wrong with that. But when you just have self and family only, you're not completely taking a deep, deep breath. So now when you have self, family, extended family, community, church, faith, work, higher power, nature, now you're kind of taking a deeper breath, right? So now you see yourself as not just one or two dimensional in your relationships around you. You see yourself as layered. So now you have different avenues that you can focus yourself on, as well as you're able to zoom in and out of your own life. So what I mean by that is if self isn't going that well, maybe you can lean on family. If self and family aren't going that well, maybe you can lean on extended family. If self, family, and extended family aren't going that well, maybe you have your community. Maybe you have your church. Maybe you have your faith. Maybe you have nature. Maybe you have all these other kind of tools in relationships that you are. You may not just be one thing. You might be, and it differs for everybody, but you might be a partner, a husband, a wife. You might be a nephew. You might be a niece. You might be a cousin. You might be a daughter, a son, a cousin. You are so many different things in your relationship to the things and people around you. So that's one side of it. And I hope that was a good visual too, to kind of see that we can breathe in life. And when we're shallow breathing, it's not necessarily giving us our entirety. And it's actually not fully understanding ourselves. continuing with this concept, not just your relation to self and your environment when you breathe, but also your goals in life. You have multiple goals. You have short-term goals, long-term goals, you have intrinsic goals, extrinsic goals. You have all these different layers of even your goals, career-wise, health-wise, mental health, physical health. You have all these different things or accomplishments that you want to achieve. And each accomplishment might be a different spectrum to each person, to each their own. But you have all these different goals in life as well. So taking that same concept of breathing with relation to the self and your community and the people around you, now if we look at it with regards to goals in life, you can see that if you have your goals, which let's say, for example, you have your physical health and your work. Okay, you're breathing, but you're kind of shallow breathing. So now let's say you add to it your partner, your relation to your family. Let's say you add mental health to it. Let's say you add all these other layers to it as well. Now you're breathing. Now you're taking a deeper breath. You're no longer doing a shallow breath. So with a deeper breath, you're giving yourself more options. So relation to self and your community and people around you, and also your goals in life too. Keep breathing. Don't forget to breathe. So another way to kind of look at this, besides your relation to yourself, your relation to people around you, your goals in life and your values, is also to look at it in a light of you kind of want to have different options. And what I mean by that is if you are just only focused on one or two things in your life, and if those things aren't going according to plan, it's very easy for us to lose ourselves. And if you kind of visually look at this as almost you are this analogy has maybe been used before, but you're kind of like a balloon. And if you're tethered only to one spot, two spots, and three spots, now if one of those cords are cut, you're still grounded, you're still tethered, you're still anchored to something important, a person, a value, a goal in your life. So if I only see myself as a good worker and a good partner, and my partner's upset with me, and things aren't going well at work, or God forbid I get fired, I only have two anchors holding me down. And one of them gets snipped, and the other one gets snipped. I'm no longer grounded, and now I'm going to start floating. This is a concept that we used in our earlier video talking about grounding the body, the mind, and also your relation to the outside environment. If you don't have something grounding you, there's more to it, but kind of what happens is a panic attack. Panic attack is sometimes looked at when you're just floating. You don't know which way up and down is. It's almost like a big wave that hits you, and you're holding your breath, but you feel that you have to hold your breath for eternity. Because the more you're struggling and the more you're swimming, you don't know if you're going towards the surface or if you're actually going further towards the bottom of the ocean. So you don't have a concept of what up and down is. Much the same thing when we talk about breathing. If we only have one or two things that we're breathing for in life, and those things are gone, or they alter, or they need to be realigned, and we lose our anchor to those things, it's very easy for us to feel like we're floating. And now what we do is we further shallow breathe. And we can create kind of a panic attack for ourselves. So if we can continue to be mindful and remind ourselves that you are not just one label, you're multiple labels. You have a relation not just to yourself in different lights, the younger you, the older you, all these different concepts, but you also have a relationship to yourself in other people as well, and your environment as well. And also goals in life. You have your intrinsic, extrinsic goals, you have your values, short-term, long-term goals. But what I mean by that is you have all these different goals, all these different goals, all these different relations. You can also utilize this now when we talk about panic attacks as coping skills. So we got very briefly into coping skills in an earlier video, but with coping skills, if we only think that coping skills are what we can only do for ourselves, so it's only distracting, it's only breathing, it's only exercise, it's only what we can do for ourselves, we're not seeing the entire picture of that either. Coping skills are what you can do for yourself, what environment can do for you, as well as what other people can do for you as well. So if your coping skill is me, myself, and I, sooner or later, it's going to feel like you're kind of cornered. And that anchor that's holding you down, which is the self, if that kind of gets lost, now you start floating. So with even coping skills, you want to look at it as breathing as well. You have self, you have your environment, you have your social supports. So if one tier gets snipped, then you got the next one and the next one, and keep expanding on it. I'm just giving examples, but you can always add your own to these as well. My main purpose of this video is just to show the concept of you're not just one thing, you are, as cheesy, an onion. You are a bunch of layers to things. So when one avenue isn't going right, you can go to the next. But remember to bring yourself back. Because remember, we're breathing. We're inhaling and we're exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. You are yourself, relations. You are your goals, other goals. You are yourself with your relation to your community, work, and your values. When you breathe, don't forget to exhale. Don't forget to inhale. So a breathing video would not be complete unless we talked about meditation. Bear with it for just a moment. So the same concept we talked about, the keep breathing. You can look at that when you are possibly meditating for yourself as well. When you're finding some sort of calmness, centeredness, whatever your meditation looks like. If you are a little bit more of a visual meditator as well, you can visualize yourself wearing different outfits, different suits, wearing different hats. You can visualize yourself visiting different community and networks around you, like a village. So if you close your eyes and take a couple deep breaths and just visualize how you are not just one thing, you have different titles, you are different, you're all around. You can also close your eyes and visualize yourself visiting these different spots around you as well. You can walk to family, to community, to church, to nature. You can walk to all these different avenues and visit them. And that way you can think to yourself, what's my intention and my focus that I want to work on today in these different avenues? So just a side note, what I'm basically just trying to say is the brain is designed to not just look for routines, patterns, predictability, and conserve energy. But once something is working for the brain, it continues to do that thing. We can kind of do this with our value systems around us as well. What I mean by that is if the family's not going too well and work is, the brain can sometimes give more focus to that work and keep digging that tunnel further and further and further. And we can sometimes give ourselves excuses to not focus and not work on those other avenues of our lives because one avenue is going really well for ourselves. The further we dig into that tunnel, the less we've kind of spread the weight out and the more weight is put on that one thing. So what I mean by that is if work is going really well and I'm forgetting about my friends, I'm forgetting about my family, I'm forgetting about my partner, and I'm only focusing on work because it is so rewarding in that sense. If work is not going well one day and you turn around, you will realize that you are deep into a tunnel, and to come all the way back out of it and to explore your other options is going to be a lot of work. So try as we can to be mindful of spreading out our energy and focusing on different avenues and not just kind of focusing on one avenue. Same thing can be said about anything that we focus on. Sometimes our relation with our partner is going really well. And so sometimes we lose our friends, we lose our family, we lose work, we lose sight of these things, and we only focus on one thing. There's nothing wrong with doing any of this for a moment, but don't forget, when you are inhaling, don't forget to exhale. Inhale and exhale. That's the point of this video that I'm just trying to kind of say, is we're not just one thing, it's these two things, putting them together, they create this picture. So you have different values in life, you have different goals in life, you have different people around you, you have different environments, and you are also a different layered person as well. Please don't forget that. And always remember, you're trying your best. Keep breathing. Keep breathing, B. Just before I conclude the video, I just want to put a little side note on there that at no point throughout the video did I say that you have to be perfect in any of these avenues. If we think about ourselves, it have to be the perfect partner, perfect worker, perfect, perfect mental health, physical health. I have to perfect all of these things. Then we're going to forget to exhale. We're going to keep inhaling and spreading ourselves a little bit too thin. The goal is to just know that you have all these options. But if you're trying to reach perfection in each of these tiers, it's not realistic. And what I mean by that is if we're seeking perfection in each of these tiers, then we're losing the variables of outside of ourselves. So there's nothing wrong with doing your best. But if we think about perfection in each of these tiers, then that's kind of like the concrete drawing. And if you're seeking perfection in one of these avenues, and we think about it as perfect, it's done with, we perfected it, no need to work on it anymore. Well, that's dried concrete. And if you have dried concrete around you, you can't breathe. So it's not necessarily about breathing to overwhelm the self. Remember, that's shallow breathing. It's to take the deep breaths and not necessarily to each their own, but please, it's not to be a perfectionist in each of these things. Easier said than done. I just wanted to point out that you are multifaceted. You are multidimensional. You have a bunch of different levels to yourself. So be kind to yourself. You don't have to perfect each of these. I don't think it's realistic to do that because as long as you are breathing, you have a chance to keep working on something. And that's beautiful. Hopefully not stress-inducing. I guess it's the beautiful side of anxiety. That's our video for today. As always, appreciate you all out there watching. And if you liked the video, thank you so much. Until next time, thank you.